Tyler here for BleepinJeep.com. This week on BleepinJeep, Tetanus gets a new set of sun visors.
Smoking cigars and playing some poker. I was winning big time till I met this joker. He put down 3 aces and said, beat this. I threw down my cards, I was triple jack pissed.
Today, we're going to do a set of visors. Now, I know Matt did a video a couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago on visors. And those are from the newer style Cherokees that you can take the plastic apart and put it back together. These are from the older style visors that are stitched together, and you can't just take them apart. And yours may be in this bad a shape. We're pretty much going to have to build these from scratch, rebuild these from scratch. So I want to show you how to do that. This is really great, not just for Jeeps, but for you hot rod guys, you restoration guys. I'll show you if you buy a vehicle or an old car or whatever, and your visors are in this kind of condition, I'm going to show you basically how you can rebuild them from scratch. So our first order of business is going to be to tear these down, because there are some internal components that we're going to reuse. If yours are in this bad a shape, you might be able to just tear them apart like this. If not, just take your razor and just cut them down along this seam, and then it'll come right open. These are so dry rotted, I'm just gonna tear them apart. And that's pretty much what we want to keep. If these happen to be destroyed as well, you can actually make these from scratch as well. 1/8 inch masonite works really good for that, especially if you get the tempered masonite. This one's in good enough shape, but it looks like I'm going to be able to reuse it, so we're not going to have to go that extreme. So I'm going to set this aside and get to work on this other one. You can see this stuff is just a thin cardboard. You can see how it's just rotten, just absolutely rotten from moisture contamination. So let me clean up this mess. Since we're basically rebuilding these from scratch, you guys have a lot of options here. If you don't like the shape of your original visors, you can change it right now. Basically, all you have to do is come in and with a angle grinder or with a pair of dikes, you can come in and snip these staples, pull this inner form off, and then cut the visor itself out of that 1/8 inch masonite to any shape you want. And then what I do is I drill. These are this is a 5/32 pop rivet. I'll come in and drill holes through this and the masonite and pop rivet it together, because I don't have a stapler that'll shoot through this metal. I'm betting you don't either. So, but just pop rivet that piece of masonite on there, and you can make your visors any shape you want. Sky's the limit. This is typically what your headliners and your visors, the kind of cloth that they'll have on them, and it's just called headliner material. It comes 54 inches or 60 inches wide depending on colors. This is just like what it comes from OEM, from the factory, is with this stuff on the headliner and the visors. And you'll see it's got a little layer of open cell foam laminated to it, and it's just a real thin kind of brushed material. And really its primary goal is to deaden sound, and that's why it's got this nice little foam layer on it. But you notice when I pulled the old stuff off, how all that foam had dry rotted. And if you watch Matt's video, he has to scrape all that junk off of the headliner form. But what he's scraping off was this foam layer, because after time with the moisture from your breathing inside the vehicle and atmospheric moisture, that moisture gets into this open cell foam and eventually just rots it. And it takes years to do that, but eventually it'll happen. And that's when your headliner starts to droop. It's usually this piece of fabric pulling away from the foam. The foam will generally stay stuck to the mold. Anyways, that's what headliner material looks like. So if you want to go in and try and go factory or go original, you can go to any upholstery supply place and just tell them you need some headliner material. If you've got a local upholstery shop, they can order this stuff by the yard for you. If your inner molds are in good shape like these, or passable shape like these, the only other thing you need is the fabric that you want to use and a piece of chipboard. I'm going to go with 1000 denier Cordura nylon. It's pack cloth, and this truck is going to have a desert kind of military theme to it, so I'm using the Marine Corps Desert Digital camo pattern. And then you'll need one sheet of chipboard, and you can get this at any upholstery shop. Should have this stuff by the sheet like this. In case you guys are wondering, here's a close-up of what that chipboard looks like. Just a real thick cardboard, but it is just cardboard. Let's start laying these out. The nice thing with this Comanche visor is I can actually pull this thing out. You can't always do that, but that's actually going to make this quite a bit easier to lay out. So basically what we're doing here is we're going to create kind of a clamshell, and that clamshell is going to wrap around this inner mold, this inner framework here, and then we're going to stitch it together, and that'll create our new sun visor. Our pivot point for this is going to be along this edge here, not down here. So what we want to do is make a straight line across, and I'm going to give myself plenty of breathing room because we need to leave a little space all the way around this visor. So I'm going to go ahead and just make an index mark there, and that's going to allow me to line up the top of this visor. Now I want to leave basically 1 inch all the way around this, and now I'm just going to trace. I recommend you use a pencil for this. I'm going to trace this inner frame. Like that. I'm going to make a mark where the metal ends and begins there. Okay, so here is the shape of our inner mold. Now we just need to go around and start making 1 inch marks around this, and that's going to tell us where we're going to cut this. It's worth it to spend a little extra time to get this right now. It'll save you lots of headaches later. Alright guys, this is going to be your master pattern. So we're going to go ahead and cut this out, and then we're going to use this to create our 2 clamshells out of what's left of this piece of chipboard. Alright, let's lay out our 2 clamshells. Again, we're going to go off of this top profile, not this bottom one because it tapers a little bit. I'm just going to go all the way across. Now I'll butt this up against it. Trace it. Okay, now we can't just flip this over here and start tracing, and the reason is we need to account for the thickness of this center piece of steel that holds the I don't know what kind of, the post, whatever you'd call that. So there's some thickness to this. So if we just do a mirror image and do butterfly wings with this, when we go to fold this over and stitch it, we're going to lose about 3/8 to a half an inch along this spine, and we may not be able to get it to fit. So we're going to accommodate for that by coming in here and making... We also need to accommodate for the thickness of our material once we get it wrapped around this. So we're going to come in and make another line about 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to use this, will be a little bit faster for me. So I'm going to come in 3/8 of an inch and make another horizontal line. That now becomes the line that we line this up with. And that will accommodate for that center piece. Okay, so there are our first clamshells done. Alright, let's cut out those clamshells. Alright, we've got our 2 clamshells done. Let's take you to the next step and get some covers on these things. Next, let's get these laid out on the fabric. We need to leave about 3/4 of an inch all the way around our pattern here. So make sure you're in from the selvage edge and around away from the other pattern enough that you can get about 3/4 of an inch all the way around this. We'll go ahead and trace our pattern now. Now remember, as you're cutting these out, and that you need to leave about 3/4 of an inch all the way around them. You can just eyeball it. Our next step is to grab our clam shell here, and we need to score these 2 lines so that this will bend along those lines nice and clean. Now we don't want to cut it. If you cut through this, you've ruined it. So what I like to do is put a straight edge on there, and then I use an ice pick, but something that's fairly dull. Maybe the side of a screwdriver might do this, but you just got to make sure you don't go through this cardboard. I'm just going to score a line. Make sure you get them straight. Thank you, Mr. Telemarketer, for interrupting my video. So we've scored these 2 lines. So now what that's going to do, when we bend this, now it's going to fold along those lines, give us a nice, clean fold. Like that. So in keeping with the whole desert military theme, I decided to do my visors with some PALS webbing, which is what the standard military kit uses, this so that you can attach pockets. It's a modular system they use. Sometimes it's called MOLLE. I did it on both sides. That'll allow me to attach some pouches to this, and then a little Velcro spot for my morale patches on both sides there. Now I didn't show how I sewed this because the layout is quite complicated, and you do have to have some specialized machinery to be able to do these bar tacks. But my purpose in showing this to you is to show you that really you can do whatever you want with your visors. You could put a big piece of Velcro on here that you can put patches on. Some of you hot rod guys, if you wanted to take your skin before you sew it shut and go have it embroidered with a logo, with maybe your name on the driver's side, your wife's name on the passenger side. I mean, really, whatever you can imagine you can do. So this is really just to show you some of the possibilities, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how to put the skin on it now. And this is going to be quite a bit easier to do than what I'm about to show you. This PALS webbing really makes this a little bit difficult because I have to stretch it. If you don't have all this stitching in here, yours is going to go on quite a bit easier than this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to glue the skin to the form. I really like to use this, it's from Keystone Brothers. It's their general purpose adhesive. It's the number 4011. This stuff is really great for semi-permanent add, you know, gluing applications. The super nice thing about this is that it won't bleed through this fabric. This is not what I would call a permanent adhesive. If you try to do a headliner with this stuff, as soon as it gets hot, it's going to come down. But really, all we need to do is hold this skin in place long enough for us to stitch around the perimeter of it, and this works really good for that. I'm going to go ahead and coat. You got to coat both surfaces. Just like that. Now we're going to let this dry out until it's tacky. We don't want any moisture in it at all, and then it's going to stick almost like a contact cement. This stuff is awesome. It's like having an extra set of hands. I use lots and lots of this stuff. Now this has gotten good and tacky. All the solvent's pretty well evaporated off of that. You should be able to just lay yours on there nice and flat and be good to go. If you're using a real stretchy fabric like headliner fabric, this is going to be super easy. Just going to make sure this is all laying down. I don't have any weird wrinkles or anything or puckers on this other side, on this outside. Okay, see if we can get through this without another call. Once I've gotten this flattened out the way I want it, I've checked this side, make sure it's not looking wrinkly or goofy. Now, we're going to grab our yellow label again here and just go around the perimeter about 2 inches worth. I'll show you here. And we're going to get this pretty heavy. Alright, you can see I've laid that on there pretty heavy. Go ahead and move our glue board here. Now, while we're waiting for that to tack up, I'm going to come in and start trimming these corners so that when I roll this over to glue it, we don't have a bunch of big wrinkly fabric that will make the clamshell not go together very good. So let me show you how to do that. Whew, that only took forever. I wanted to show you that I don't cut all the way to the edge. I cut up to about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And we just start folding these over. Now all these little cuts you've made will allow this to lay fairly flat without big wrinkles in here. So this final step involves sewing. Now, this is going to take a bit of a pretty tough machine to punch through this. So there's a couple options we've got here. You can get it to this point and take your inner frame and your outer skin here to an upholstery shop and just have them stitch this shut. Or you can come up with a different way to close the clamshell. And I was thinking, you know, maybe pop rivets every inch would give a really cool kind of industrial look, you know. I mean, there's maybe Chicago screws if you could find some that were short enough. You could even use rivets like you would use on leather. But the simplest way is to just sew it shut. So that's what I'm going to do. Now I'm just going to stitch up this back here, close that up. Now I'll come into about there. Now I can stick this thing back in. There we go. There's my new custom visors with military PALS webbing on them. I can attach any Malle based or PALS webbing based pouch. You know, this is a mag pouch for pistol magazines. I can put a med kit up there, whatever, an organizer. Got a spot for my morale patches on both sides. I'm good to go. Sweet. Alright guys, thanks for watching. That's it for this week. Don't forget to click the thumbs up and subscribe, and go visit BleepinJeep.com for all the best off-road videos on the internet. Gonna have a lot more videos coming from Project Tetanus, so stay tuned, and we'll show you guys each step of the way. Thanks for watching.